National Economy, a discussion of the bases for the science of economics, by Dr. Theodor Brauer. Chapter 1. The subject matter of economics. Economics is a social science. It is generally admitted that economics is a social science, yet the conception and the explanation of the term social seems to show a wide divergence. Economics, as Edwin R. A. Seligman points out, deals with the social phenomena centering about the provision for the material needs of the individual and of the organized groups. This definition indicates that economics is a social scientific discipline and that it is concerned with the relations of man to man arising out of processes directed to the satisfaction of material needs. Here the social character of economics is shown by the fact that it is concerned with the social phenomena or the relations of man to man, which center about the securing of the means for the satisfaction of material needs. There are other explanations. A social science is one concerned with the study of human beings, not as isolated specimens, but as members of social groups, families, tribes, villages, states, nations. Such is the definition in the commonly used textbook of Fairchild, Furness, and Buck. Here, the central point of the definition is the consideration of human beings as members of social groups. Now, to get at the difference, in the first definition, the social phenomena, the relations of man to man, are the subject matter of economics. In the second, man is the bearer of social phenomena, man in his relations to his fellow men, as far as the provision for material needs is concerned, man is a member of institutions which have developed for man's struggle for the things with which to satisfy his wants. What are we to accept as the true definition? The answer is given, albeit unconsciously, in Fairchild, Furness, and Buck. In this textbook, on page 10, there is this statement: "The burglar's Jimmy satisfies a want of his. It has utility in the economic sense." We apply this to the textbook's definition. In it, the statement was made that it was not a question of a thing satisfying a want of human beings as isolated specimens, but as members of social groups, families, tribes, villages, states, and nations. Now we ask, does the burglar's Jimmy possess any utility in an economic sense as seen, for example, from the point of view of the state? Very few would be inclined to answer this question in the affirmative. In this example, the textbook starts out from the point of view of the individual, the isolated specimen. This individual is, so to speak, exclusively centered about himself. This fact, an individually conceived and justified activity, is not an exception but a general feature characterizing the procedure applied by the greatest part of modern economics. We might even make this statement as a general rule. Modern economists assume that the individual, physical or legal, is the sole bearer of economic activity. The keenest expression of present-day reality is the following statement found in Torstein Veblen, Theory of Business Enterprise, page 45. "The industrial system is organized on business principles and for pecuniary ends. The businessman is at the center. He holds the discretion and he exercises it freely. The retardation as well as the advance is to be set down to his account. As a plain matter of fact, from the point of view of the average economist, the individual, as a lone, isolated figure or as part of a working group, is the actual bearer of the economy of our day. It must be remembered that even in the group, the individual's activities center exclusively about his own interests as contrasted to those of the others. In close agreement with this, we find in Fairchild, Furness, and Buck that in man's work for his livelihood we have the roots of the great human institutions, law, property, the family, etc., which have developed out of man's struggle for the things with which to satisfy his wants. Apart from the narrow materialism here at work, it is impossible to exceed the individualism of the authors. What they, in their book, call social is evidently but the result of man's individual, or better, individualistic wants. The character of the most important institutions is given them, so we must infer, as a bare consequence of individual or individualistic necessity. It is, therefore, in its existence and maintenance exposed to man's arbitrary decision. It lacks all flavor of an intrinsic value, cultural effect, and dignity. But what about the definition of Seligman? There, too, we see statements about social phenomena centering around the provision for the material needs of the individual and of organized groups. Is there any essential difference between these and the statements of Fairchild et al.? This question is difficult to answer. Seligman does not say whether he gives to the term social the same individualistic and materialistic meaning as Fairchild et al., or whether he understands the term in its only admissible sense. Thus, by the development of our considerations, we are forced to inquire as to the genuine and full significance of the word social, as used in the expressions social phenomena and social science. The meaning of the word social. Since the publication of Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations, all systems of economics, whatever their tendencies, admit that, nationally speaking, the wealth of any nation is identical with the totality of the economic goods of that nation together with the power to dispose of these goods. This national wealth, however, presupposes that which is generally known to economists as a systematic activity, aimed at providing for and preserving and administering these goods. This systematic activity is the content of economy. In this perspective, we may express it as social economy comprising a whole nation, or we may call it national economy. Thus, national economy is the process of acquiring wealth insofar as this wealth affects the whole nation. Because it consists in the reciprocal dependence of all members of a nation upon all other members with regard to their acquisition of individual wealth, this economy is social. But this is only the beginnings of sociality, or socialness, reciprocal or mutual dependence upon one another. Here the simple relations of man to man stand out more sharply and distinctly. First, then, social phenomena are social in a natural sense. In other words, it is of their very essence to be associated with the social intercourse of men and their activities. True, these phenomena are facts conditioned by economic activity, i.e. the activities of individuals. They are characterized, however, by their dependence upon what other individuals will and do. From this we see that the social element lies in the mutual dependence of the individuals upon each other. Yet this is, so to speak, only the raw material of the social factor. To mold it, we must look for the natural consequence of this mutual dependence. This consequence is brought out by the fact that although the individual may freely dispose of the results of his own economic activity, the activity itself, within the social intercourse, underlies the sway of determined forms of communication created by society. From this we arrive at the external significance, or what is the same, the practical range of what we call social. It is identified with activity within the social organization, i.e. the organization of the relations of man to man as formed by society independently of any individual will. In the economic life, this means that the individual is free as regards the use and exchange of economic power, but is subject to those social restrictions. Thus, national economy may be defined as the economy of all members of a nation bound together by social organization. The purpose of an economics concerned with national economy is to find out what social conditions influence the national wealth, and how these conditions determine the process of securing national wealth. Granted that national wealth is the end of national economy, the economist must find out if the economic facts are expedient to national wealth. This specific part of economics for which we suggest the name national economy is a science based on a teleological consideration of the economic facts. Its causal relations are established on the basis of a final cause, i.e. the idea of an aim, goal, or end. Starting from this idea, we can go on to a realistic evaluation of national economy as a science concerned with securing the wealth of the nation. There is, first of all, an organization placing all individual economies on the same basis. Footnote: the expression individual economies as contrasted with national economy is used here and elsewhere in this book to include the manifold forms which the provision for the material needs of the individuals, physical as well as legal, may take. Further, there is a common end for all these individual economies, national wealth. National economy, then, is more than merely the sum of the individual economies. It becomes a moral unity. It is a community. It is a moral unity as opposed to a physical unity because the individual members, while they are essentially united, remain in their physical essence independent of each other. Their union in a common end unites them morally. National economy is not set up apart from the individual economies, but rather it is the economy of all the socially connected members of the nation. As a cathedral is something more than the stones of which it is made, as a person is something more than a series of thoughts and feelings, So the life of society is something more than the sum of the lives of its individual members. Alfred Marshall, Principles of Economics. Why a national economy? From what has been said, it is clear that our subject is not the individual economy of a single businessman, nor that economy which comprises the totality of all economic relations and activities within the whole of humanity. We, as well as other authors of similarly orientated works, are concerned with the social conditions of national wealth, insofar as it is the wealth of nations. What more logical name could we give it than national economy? In a historical sense, each national economy differs from all others. From this point of view, each nation is an individual. Insofar as this is so, the particular nation does not fall within the scope of this book. We are in no way concerned with individual economy. However, it is possible to distinguish between the individual features of each of the different national economies and their common elements. It is these common elements that we shall have occasion to deal with here. For us, they are the most important because now, more than at any other time, man is faced with the necessity of finding a solution for his social problems.